Hello there. Ahead of the 2023 elections, INEC registered a total of 9.5 million new voters. 76.5% of them are young people between ages 18, to 34 years. The percentage of young people eligible to vote is about half of the over 93 million people registered to vote in Nigeria. One would naturally expect that whoever will win the 2023 presidential election must be the favorite of the youth population. Political pundits, however, confidently mock this expectation and assert that this population is active only on social media and will not do the real work of mobilizing, supporting, and voting for a candidate they believe in. Meanwhile, civic participation, that is the involvement of individual constituents or communities in local, state, and national government, is the bedrock of a succeeding democracy. Civic involvement can include voting, political activism, volunteering, and community engagement. On today's edition of the program, we focus on the imperative of citizens' participation in the 2023 elections and how the current upheavals within the socio-political space can make or mar that election. Welcome to the program, everyone. This is Politics Alive on Alive Television. I am Olubenga George. When the program returns from this short break, I will be joined by Engineer H.F. Dauda, the National Organizing Secretary of Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu Support Group. It's called the AATSG. Engineer Dauda holds the traditional title, the Mesoro of Fika Patescon in Yobe State, and a founding member of the defunct Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, ANRP. He's now the National Organizing Secretary of the AATSG, supporting Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, the presidential candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress in the 2023 elections. We're going to this quick break. When we come back, he will be joining me in this conversation. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. This is Politics Alive, reaching you from the stables of Alive Television. All right, I have been joined now right here in the studios by Engineer H.F. Dauda to discuss the imperatives of the 2023 elections and all of the issues around it. It's good to have you join me today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for making our time. All right, the situation of the country, as far as I think and know right now, is very gross. We can't talk politics if there are no people to govern. And you look around the nation at the moment, I would say that the nation is in agony. People are groaning, especially the larger percentage of those we call the masses. This, of course, has been occasioned by the recent introduction of the cashless policy or digital banking that the Central Bank of Nigeria. But a lot of people do say that that is a parting gift from President Muhammadu Buhari, hardship and, all the upheavals that we have right now. But I'd like to get down to it straight. It looks like two sides of a coin. I've spoken to quite a number of people who feel that the policy, the CBN's policy, is a good one, especially because it will help to deter vote buying in the 2023 elections. And we also have the other side that says, are we even sure that we can survive till the day of election? Because our economy is built on everyday spending. It has been built like that over the years. But here we are being moved to a terrain that we are not very familiar with, and there is even no time to actually adjust to that terrain. I'd like to get your view. Is this policy coming in the right direction? Is this what we need? Is it more important, to stop vote by the 2023 elections than to, subject Nigerians to the current situation that we are in?
Thank you for having me. Let me say this. The idea of the reissue of the Naira, the idea of the redesign and also the deadline for the old notes to be phased out was based on a principle that seemed at the time very good. But you cannot at any time take your good intentions and use punitive measures to implement. They did not think out the implementation process. Yes, it is good to remove, fraud. It is good to remove corruption. It is good to remove all the devices that are inherent in the naira being outside the banks.
Oh.
But if you want to bring it back into the bank, you should not punish Nigerians to do that. You should understand that Nigeria is a cash economy. And if you give a deadline within which the new notes are not available, there is no infrastructure to distribute the new notes. There is no infrastructure to go, digital, because our network is so epileptic. I mean, if you try a transaction now, you will fail 5 out of 10 times. And there is no availability of the financial institutions are only in the major cities and urban areas. If you go to our local areas, they don't exist. So how do you make this policy work? CBN should have at least worked hard to find this reasonable.
Okay, well, maybe in defense of the CBN, and from what I know, the CBN have they rolled out this, this policy and have informed Nigerians that from October in 2022, and that we're all aware that on the 31st of January, the old notes will no longer be legal tender. That's, the CBN's position. Isn't the time, October, I think the 19th or thereabouts, till an extension now, isn't it enough for Nigerians to be aware and to quickly move, to become digitized?
CBN should have understood our history. When we did NIM, we had the same problem. When we did BVN, we had the same problem. These are all just services that we're supposed to collect. Nigerians are notoriously not convinced with any new policy. So CBN should have done its work to convince Nigerians that this is serious. We are going to change this naira. 2, they should now say to Nigerians, okay, what is your opinion? Nobody was involved in this policy. Nigerians were not brought in and asked, what do you think? How do we do it?
I'm not speaking for the CBN,
okay,
but I think I'll follow the story up onto a reasonable extent. And you would remember that the CBN and the CBN governor talked about how it has deployed many members, deputy directors, to go and visit traditional rulers, to go to the hinterlands and, relate with these people and make them understand, first, the essence, of the currency swap, and secondly, the impact it is meant to have, on the economy and the forthcoming elections. And you have also mentioned that Nigerians are obviously not convinced. Is it not just the stubbornness of the Nigerian people? Is it, especially when we are also looking at global tendencies, because we have globalization now, and you have global trade, and you have social media, that connects the whole world together. And we see Nigerians, the same set of Nigerians, doing very well where this is concerned. So isn't it just, do you not think that it will require some level of force, noting again from your point that Nigerians are notoriously not convinced that if you are going to move into this kind of policy, it's not going to come easy. We have to take that drastic measures and move them into it.
Agreed. But once you begin the implementation, when you encounter bottlenecks, you're supposed to resolve them. CBN has now resolved them. Kept insisting that you must do what they have said in the first place. And what they have said in the first place is not working. I'll give you an example. In a local environment today, in my hometown or in yours, you go and ask, there are people there that are begging for 1,000 naira.
Not just in the villages. I have seen them in town. I've seen them in the capital.
So when CBN sees this as a outcome, as a result of this policy, they need to do a quick turnaround. For us to say, okay, we have told you before, is no longer relevant. For us to say we have informed you since October, it's no longer relevant. For us to say that we have sent money, the money has not reached the people that needs to get that money. So for a good, participative government, it should say, wait a minute, okay, let's wait. Let's restart.
So okay, so let me get this now. Which do you support? A lot of people that I have spoken to says, for now, the policy should be suspended. A lot of people say, well, because there are different request. Now, you have the National Assembly saying, this case, I mean, we shouldn't even talk about it until June the 31st. And, you know, a lot of people are already wondering, okay, so June 31 days.
The National Assembly is the biggest culprit because they make the laws.
But
they could have from the beginning, when CBN said we're going to do this, they could have written a law that says this can only happen through this process. Send it to the president. If he vetoes, they will override his veto, and that law comes into effect. They could have done that. They didn't do it. Okay. Now they're complaining the CBN should not do. No. You can't complain.
That is when we now say we talk about the CBN acting out of order, because from the establishment of the law, the CBN governor has not done anything wrong. He's only been fulfilling his official duty and what is provided for him.
You know, the Nigerians were aghast when the Minister of Finance says she didn't know that.
All right, and that will take us to the other side of this conversation, but we need to take a quick break. All right, let's take this quick break. When we return, the conversation continues. Stay with us. You're welcome back. We are still discussing the very serious imperative of citizens' participation in the 2023 elections, and of course how the current upheavals within the social space will affect the participation of Nigerians during the 2023 election. And of course, I'm still in the studios with engineer H.F. Dauda right here in the studios. All right, just before we went on that break, we were getting to the interesting part of this conversation, which is the fact that a lot of people say that this policy is coming at the wrong time. I think you alluded to that. And some said that it is politically motivated. It first sounded like a rumor until elements within your party began to now make confirmations by making statements. So I'll begin with, your presidential candidate, who you actually organized for under the AATSG, talking about the fact that they are trying to sabotage, the election process. And that, has disturbed a lot of Nigerians because for the presidential candidate of the ruling party to make such statements, I believe it's a great indictment on the party and, of course, on the current administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. But I'd like to get your thought.
Well, in any democracy, the government should be prepared to accept any criticism that, any common sense will say, or at least put forth. Because why are we doing it now? I accept that if the government tells me there is no motive whatsoever, fine. But why are we doing two things at the same time? Elections and, Naira issue. These are very huge and very important, critical, activities in our lifetime as Nigerians. So it shouldn't be done at the same time. But yes, this decision was made in October, but it should be at least implemented long before now or long after now, so that there is no connection. If you want to, they said in Hausa, if you want to look good, add some, cleaning of your own, hygiene. This is what the government needs. If the government wants to look good, it should remove the appearance. It is an appearance. They can make cases and say, this is not our intention. Fine. But the appearance right now is that you're doing it to prevent the party from...
But let me ask you this straight away, because it looks like more and more, every time I have conversation, you just keep confirming the fears of people about the 2023 election. A lot of people believe that your party, and the reason why you feel offended, by the decision of the CBN together with the federal government at this time, is because your party wants to engage in vote buying. And you know that if there is no money in circulation, there will be no money for you. And that's why your candidate and all of you who support him continue to lament over the CBN's policy.
I will give you that if that's the case, but that's not the case. That is never the case. If it is about vote buying, Nigerians will not go to election on the 25th. They will stay at home because they have not been paid. But I assure you, on the 25th, Nigeria will come out and vote. So it's not about vote buying. It's our politics made out with a lot of money involved. in the past, yes, but we have to learn to remove that. So this is the first step.
So what does Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and again, we had Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State.
Here's what he's saying. Without money, nothing will operate. If nothing operates, the elections cannot hold. Because people can't travel even from one point A to point B. There is no food, there is no water, they don't have businesses, their job has stopped. How can you do elections in that environment? That is the point, is that you are preventing the actual election. It's not about us taking money and giving it to voters. That is in the past. Today, we need to be able to function. This Naira issue has stopped every commercial function that you can imagine. How do we do elections? It's not possible. So Asiwaju is now looking at, I have money to give to people and you have removed them. That's not true. He's looking at the process itself has denied Nigerians the right to go and exercise that voting, in franchise. They have to be able to go. They can't go without any money. You and I agreed. Even today, if you say there is election today in Abuja, nobody can go.
Yeah, true. Okay, so let me get this clear. How does the statement of Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State, how does it now play out in all of this? Well, I'm coming. He said people who are in the villa are trying to sabotage your presidential candidate, the party's presidential candidate, because he emerged out of their will, that the persons they expected to emerge during the primaries of the party did not emerge. So they are trying to ensure that they frustrate, the candidacy of Asiwaju Tinubu in the 2023 election. How does that add up, and how does it impact on this forthcoming election and the general reactions that we've been getting?
I will not speak for him, but I will speak of my understanding. In my understanding is that he is actually telling us and all Nigerians that this process was conceived, implemented, guided, and borne by the group that are in the bill. In a participatory government, how can you have a state governor of Kaduna not being able to do anything about Nairobi issue? How can you have the state governor of Lagos not participating? How can you have all the governors not even sitting at a table and discussing that we are going to reissue the Naira? They'll be removed from it. So someone is responsible. It's not the governors, it's not our candidate, and it's the people in the village that he's saying are responsible for this policy, and a policy that is now very painful. So he's holding them to account. You conceived, you implemented, and it has failed. So now go back and redo it. But if Nasir El-Rufai is saying, His Excellency is saying that someone outside is doing it to undermine the candidate, then the appearance is there that yes, they're doing it to undermine the candidate. It may not be true, but they have to come out and explain. And that's a fair question.
Okay, it's very fair. I mean, I like that submission. But let's look at it. What's been happening with the APC? If the APC is the party that has produced a candidate through supposedly a transparent process, that produced this candidate. We've had all the members, some of them have actually come to join the candidate now to say, okay, we are support. But we still have a whooping number of some persons who were involved, especially at the primary levels, who are nowhere to be seen or heard in this political process. How does the current situation and the allegation of Nasir El-Rufai, how does it connect, with all of these people and the current situation at hand?
A vibrant party is supposed to carry all those. Those who agree, those who disagree, the opinions that are good, the opinions that are, challenge the opinions. This is what a party is supposed to do. The president is now God, so he can be challenged. That's what APC is doing. And it is good for APC to challenge its own president. It should not hide behind some doors and say he's always right. He is not always right, and that's good for us.
When you say he's not always right, or when you talk about whether he's right or he's not always right, Are you trying to confirm some of the opinions that even the current candidate isn't the president's choice, in the 2023, for the party in the 2023 election?
Does it matter if he's the president's choice? Is it not Nigerians who are going to elect? Let him be the choice of Nigerians. If Nigerians elect him, then he is the president's choice because the majority is the ones who rule. It's not one person. So the president can, we have used to the past where one person will dictate who will become the president of Nigeria, and we accepted it. It's not what it's supposed to be. You and I will agree. Democracy says the majority should select the president. So Buhari cannot select the president for us. Nigerians have to elect the president. And if that's what is going to happen today, that's good for our democracy. And if the candidate and the president are going to argue over substance, that's good for our democracy. But we should not accept just everybody is in line as if we are robots, and then at the end of the day, we don't know what is the true face that we are electing. Let's see this.
All right, let's talk about the interesting part now. At the beginning, I reeled out the statistics of 76.5 million Nigerian youth, and I mentioned that one would expect with that figure, naturally, the candidate should either be a youth or be someone who is sponsored, supported, chaired, carried by the larger population, by the larger voting population. Would you say at this material time that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is that candidate, that has the support of the Nigerian youth to the extent that by February 25th, when elections will hold, if it does hold, you are sure that this population of the Nigerian people who will definitely bring in the next president will be voting for your candidate amongst the many choices that are available to them?
I will say so, but I take your premise that the youth are now a strong segment in electing a president. If they decide as a bloc that this is the person they are going to support, there is no doubt that that person will carry the day. But our politics has to be, our youth have to understand something. Politics is 10% noise, 90% science.
Okay.
So they cannot be making noise and think they can elect the president. They have to get involved in the science of politics. What is the science of politics? It's very simple. You reach out, you become a part of it, you engage who are going to do the work, you do the grassroots, you do the door-to-door. You have to be involved in the gritty part of selling your message. That's politics. Our youth are still waiting like this. They are not engaged. They are engaged on social media, which is good. But how many times can you leave social media and go to the voting booth?
That's an interesting view, especially from what I know as a Nigerian who happen to fall in that demography of youth. I'm quite aware that more than ever before, apart from the figures that we see in the voter registration turnout, we can say that the youth are interested, have been part and parcel of different online platforms. Yes, I agree that you have been talking about online, but I know that there has been a transition, from what happens online to physical spaces. What the older generation talk about more where politics is concerned is structure. And I want to believe that when we talk about structure, we're talking about people. We're talking about human beings, real human beings, in the local areas, real human beings in the state government, in the local government settings, at the federal level, at every level, of our parties. So we can say when we measure from our political rallies, when we measure from the support, I know a few candidates who have been able, to garner support from diverse people, including finances, to support their campaign for the 2023 elections. They are in this race, and they hope, and we also have a candidate whom a lot of people are throwing their weights behind right now. I'm sure you know who that is. So when we put all of this together, do you think that the perspective, of the Nigerian youth at this moment is still, or the weight of the Nigerian youth to determine that election is still dependent. It's still a social media jamboree, like many of you put it.
It's not, because here is what needs to happen. For a candidate that is serious about winning an election, he has to engage the youth today. And I agree with the points you made about the different aspects that they have participated or they are engaging in. But, very simple. Go and register. Number 1. 2, collect your PVC. 3, 4, when the election times come, go back to your polling unit and vote. That's the science of election. If the youth will do that, they will have whatever they want in politics, because they can determine who is becoming the leader. Not only that, now when you finish that, there is also the participation part. You have to engage in shaping the policy that is going to affect your life. You can't be just sitting on one fence and saying, this guy is so. That's not what we're supposed to do. I respect our youth because they have become, more active. But there are processes they must do to get engaged. They can't stop halfway. You can't say, okay, I'm an APC, but then you didn't register APC. Or you can't say, I'm from Ibadan, but then you are in Abuja and you have not registered in Abuja and you have not registered in Ibadan. So you have to complete this process. If our youth will register, collect their PVC, just like every other Nigerian, they will carry the day. But you know the statistics on PVC today. You know the statistics of registration today. The difference between the two is so great. So who is going to do the election?
Especially when you look at 34% undecided voters from some polls that we have read so far. So if our
youth will organize, and part of participation is 1, you get informed, 2, you get active, 3, you organize. If they will organize, nobody will ignore them. It's not possible. But if you do not organize, you don't have a voice.
Okay, well, just as we round off, tell us, you talked about 10% noise, yes. 90% structure, yes. All right? So we have your candidate right now, and you believe he will win. I want you to tell me, what is the biggest threat and the biggest opportunity to the emergence of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the 2023 elections?
The threat for APC and our candidate is complacency. People decide not to participate. That's the biggest threat. But if people decide to participate, there is nothing else that will stop, a candidate that is supported by many from winning, unless the, cards will change. I don't see anything in the foreseeable 2 weeks or 3 weeks that will change it. In our elections, I say 90% is science. What is the science? You mentioned the structure. What is the structure? The structure are individuals. Any candidate, today I'll give you one of the simplest examples of structures. On election day, you need 2 agents at every polling unit for your party. If you are not present, I assure you, you will not win that polling unit. Absolutely. So that's the structure that we keep talking about. It's not about youth or it's just being there. So in order for you to be there, you have to engage a lot of people. And we believe that the party that is sitting in government with so many governors, with so many senators, have the structure because they have the people
to support that. Well, that's quite interesting, and there's a whole lot more to talk about, but it's quite unfortunate that we have to go now, because when you begin to talk serious issues, time runs faster than usual. But I must appreciate you, Engineer H.F. Dauda, for making out time to be with me on the show today. I really do appreciate it. All right. And that's it for today. You've heard it. You've got to participate, and you've got to participate to the point where you are part and parcel of the process. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition. I'll come your way again next time. I am Olubinga George. Have a great weekend.